Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair on the bridge of the research ship Horizon's Edge. The stars outside looked peaceful, but Jake knew space was never truly safe. His crew had been exploring this part of space for 3 months, looking for new planets and life forms. Lisa Grant worked at her communication station, listening to radio signals from across the galaxy. Most of the time, she only heard static and the normal chatter from human colonies. But today was different. Her equipment picked up something strange. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice excited. "I'm getting a signal from the Kepler 442 system. It's not human, and it's not natural." Jake stood up and walked over to her station. "What kind of signal?" "It's quantum-based, very advanced. Someone is trying to send us a message." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "But it's encoded. I need Carl to help decode it." Carl Brooks was the ship's computer expert. He could make any machine work better and solve the hardest digital puzzles. When Lisa called him to the bridge, he brought his portable decoder with him. "Let me see what we have here," Carl said, plugging his device into Lisa's equipment. Numbers and symbols filled his screen. "This is incredible. The encoding is more advanced than anything humans have ever made." For 2 hours, Carl worked on breaking the code. Jake paced around the bridge, wondering what they had found. Was it a greeting from a new alien race, or something more dangerous? Finally, Carl looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to see this. But I warn you, it's not good news." The main screen came to life, showing the decoded message. An alien face appeared, with large eyes and blue skin. The creature looked scared and desperate. When it spoke, Carl's computer translated the words into English. "To anyone who receives this message, please help us. We are the Velta, and we are dying. Our worlds are being destroyed by creatures we call the Devourers. They eat planets and turn everything into energy for themselves." The screen showed horrible images of massive crystal monsters attacking cities. The crystals were as big as mountains, and they moved across planets like hungry animals. Wherever they went, buildings disappeared, and the ground turned to dust. "We have fought them for 50 years, the alien continued. "But we are losing. They have destroyed 47 of our star systems. Only 3 million of our people remain on our home world, Veltar Prime. Soon, we will all be dead." Jake felt sick as he watched the destruction. Entire planets were being consumed, leaving nothing behind but empty space. The Devourers moved from system to system like a plague. "We know you may not care about strangers," the Veltar said, "but these creatures will not stop with us. They are moving toward your part of space. In 20 years, maybe less, they will reach your worlds too." The message showed technical data about the Devourers. They were not alive in the normal sense. Instead, they were like living machines made of crystal that could think and learn. They got stronger by eating matter and turning it into energy. "We have learned some things about them," the alien explained. "They can be hurt by certain quantum frequencies. We have the data, but we don't have enough ships or weapons to use it. If someone could help us, we could share everything we know." The message ended with coordinates for the Veltar homeworld and a desperate plea. "Please, if anyone receives this, help us. We don't want to die alone." The bridge fell silent. Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same shock on their faces that he felt. They had found proof of intelligent alien life, but also discovered a threat that could destroy everything they knew. "Carl, how far away is Kepler 442? Jake asked. "About 200 light years, Captain. It would take our fastest ships months to get there." "And how long ago was this message sent?" Carl checked his data. "Based on the quantum signature, about 6 months ago. The situation there might be even worse now." Jake knew what he had to. "Do Lisa send this message immediately to Earth Command? Flag it as urgent, and include all the technical data. They need to see this right away." "Yes, Captain. Lisa replied, her fingers already working on the transmission. Jake stared at the screen, which now showed the empty stars again. Somewhere out there, an entire species was fighting for survival against monsters that could destroy planets. Even worse, those same monsters were slowly moving toward human space. On Earth, Admiral Helen Carter was having a normal day until the urgent message arrived. She was reviewing supply reports when her aide rushed into her office. "Admiral, we have an emergency transmission from the research vessel Horizon's Edge. You need to see this immediately." Helen watched the alien message 3 times before she fully believed it. She called her best advisors to an emergency meeting. The room filled with generals, scientists, and strategists, all looking as shocked as she felt. Dr. Ryan Phillips, Earth's top expert on alien life, studied the data carefully. "This appears to be genuine," he said. "The technology shown here is far beyond anything humans could fake. These Veltar are real, and so is the threat they describe." Hinedal Peter Kane, head of the Earth Defense Force, looked grim. "If these devourers are really moving toward human space, we need to act, but this could also be a trap. How do we know we can trust these aliens?" "We don't," Helen admitted. "But look at this data. If even half of what they're showing us is true, these devourers will eventually reach our colonies. We can either help the Veltar fight them now, or face them alone later, when they're even stronger." The debate continued for hours. Some advisors wanted to ignore the message and hope the devourers would change direction. Others argued for an immediate military response. The stakes were enormous, and any wrong decision could doom humanity. Finally, a young officer named Amy Stone spoke up. She had been quietly studying the data while the others argued. "Admirals and generals," she said, "I think we're missing something important. These devourers have been consuming star systems for decades. Look at their pattern of movement. They're not wandering randomly. They're following the densest concentrations of habitable worlds." She brought up a star map showing the devourers' path of destruction. "If they continue this pattern, they will definitely reach human space. Not in 20 years, but in maybe 10. We can't avoid this fight." Helen looked at the map and felt a chill. Amy was right. The threat was real, and it was coming whether they helped the Velta or not. "Then we have our answer," Helen said. "We're going to help them, and we're going to hit these devourers with everything we have." Admiral Helen Carter stood before the Earth Defense Council in the largest meeting room on the planet. Representatives from every human colony sat around the massive table, their faces serious as they listened to her report about the Velta message. "The threat is real," Helen said, showing the images of destroyed worlds on the main screen. "These devourers have wiped out entire civilizations. If we don't act now, they will eventually reach our space and do the same to us." The debate was fierce. Some council members wanted to evacuate human colonies away from the threat. Others suggested building better defenses and waiting. But Helen had already made up her mind. "We're not running, and we're not hiding," she declared. "We're going to fight, and we're going to win." The council voted to authorize Operation Stellar Shield, the biggest military operation in human history. Within hours, orders went out to every military base, shipyard, and research facility. Humanity was going to war. Admiral Marcus Bell got the call at his home on Mars. He was a tough old soldier who had fought in the war against the rebel colonies 20 years ago. His gray hair and scarred face showed his experience, but his eyes still burned with the fire of a warrior. "Marcus," Helen said over the video call, "I need you to lead Task Force Retribution. We're assembling the largest fleet humanity has ever built." "What's the target?" Marcus asked, already reaching for his uniform. "Alien monsters that eat planets. And we're going to show them what happens when they threaten human friends." Marcus smiled grimly. "When do we leave?" "As soon as possible. We have maybe weeks before the last Veltar survivors are killed." The shipyards around Earth worked day and night. the newest class of human warships, the Devastator-class dreadnoughts, rolled out of construction faster than anyone thought possible. These ships were massive, over 2 kilometers long, and packed with the most powerful weapons humans had ever built. Captain Alex Turner took command of the first dreadnought, the Thunderstrike. He was young for such an important job, but he had proven himself in every battle he'd ever fought. His crew trusted him completely, and his enemies feared him. "She's beautiful," Alex said, looking at his new ship from the dock. The Thunderstrike was dark gray, with sharp angles that made it look like a weapon, even when it was standing still. Captain Maria Santos commanded the second dreadnought, the Warhammer. She was one of the few people who had ever beaten Alex in combat training, and their friendly rivalry pushed both of them to be better commanders, ready to see who kills more aliens. Maria asked Alex over their communication link. "You're on," Alex replied with a grin. "But I get the biggest one." The real breakthrough came from Chief Engineer Nina Torres and her team of scientists. They had been studying the Veltar data about Devourer weaknesses, working around the clock to turn that knowledge into weapons. The Devourers are made of a special kind of crystal, Nina explained to Admiral Bell. But crystals can be shattered if you hit them with the right frequency. We've built quantum disruptor cannons that should tear them apart at the molecular level. The QD-7 quantum disruptor was unlike any weapon humans had ever made. Instead of using explosives or energy beams, it attacked the very structure of matter itself. When it hit a target, the bonds holding atoms together simply stopped working. The power requirements are enormous, Nina warned. Each shot drains almost 10% of a dreadnought's total energy, but the destruction should be complete. General Peter Kane was busy training special forces for the mission. His Marines were tough soldiers who specialized in fighting in space and on hostile worlds. But fighting crystal monsters that defied physics would be something new even for them. "Listen up," Kane told his troops during a training session. "These things aren't like any enemy we've faced. They can change shape, ignore gravity, and turn matter into energy, but they can still be killed, and we're going to be the ones doing it." Sergeant Tom Bradley was one of Kane's best soldiers. He had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile aliens, but he'd never seen his general look so serious. "What's the plan if we have to board one of their ships?" Tom asked. "Plant quantum charges in their core and get out fast," Kane replied. "The explosion will destroy them from the inside." Meanwhile, Dr. Ryan Phillips was working with the few Veltar survivors who had escaped their dying world. They had arrived on Earth in small ships, bringing with them everything they knew about fighting the Devourers. The aliens were amazed by human military preparations. Their own species had tried to fight defensively, building shields and hiding behind barriers. Humans were planning to attack directly with overwhelming force. "Your people are very aggressive," said Zephra, a Veltar scientist. "Our military doctrine focused on protection and survival. Yours seems focused on destroying the enemy completely." "That's because we learned something a long time ago," Dr. Phillips replied. "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. If something threatens what we care about, we don't just fight back. We make sure it can never threaten anyone again." The Veltar helped improve the quantum disruptors and shared detailed information about Devourer tactics. They also provided star charts showing the exact location of their homeworld and the monsters surrounding it. As the fleet grew larger, word spread throughout human space. Volunteers came from every colony, wanting to join the fight. The shipyards couldn't build ships fast enough to hold everyone who wanted to help. "I've never seen anything like this," Admiral Bell told his staff. "People are fighting to get into this war. They're not being forced to fight. They want to fight." Commander Steve Walsh, the fleet's intelligence officer, had been studying every piece of data about the Devourers. He was a quiet man who preferred thinking to fighting, but his analysis would be crucial to the mission's success. "The Devourers seem to have a hive mind," Steve reported. When one of them learns something, they all learn it. That means they'll adapt to our weapons quickly. We need to hit them hard and fast before they figure out how to defend themselves. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kate Murphy was preparing for casualties. She had no idea what human bodies would do when exposed to devourer technology, but she was ready for anything. Set up medical bays on every ship, she ordered her staff, and make sure we have enough supplies for extended combat. This isn't going to be a quick fight. The final piece of the puzzle came when Nina Torres made an unexpected discovery. While testing the quantum disruptors, she noticed that the weapons worked better when the operators were emotional. It doesn't make scientific sense, she told Admiral Bell, but anger and determination seemed to amplify the quantum resonance. The madder our gunners get, the more damage they do. Then we'll make sure they're plenty mad, Bell replied. Show them the footage of what these things did to the Veltar worlds. That should give them all the motivation they need. As the fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Bell addressed all the ship captains over the communication network. Hundreds of vessels floated in space around Earth, from massive dreadnoughts to small destroyers. It was the most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled. We're not just fighting for the Veltar, Bell said. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy that values life and freedom. These devourers think they can consume whatever they want. Today, they learn that some things fight back. Captain Alex Turner checked his ship's weapons one last time. The Thunderstrike carried enough firepower to level a small moon, and every system was running perfectly. All ships report ready, Admiral, Alex announced. Then let's go show these crystal monsters what humans do to bullies, Bell replied. The fleet activated their hyperspace drives and disappeared from Earth orbit in flashes of light. They were heading toward the Kepler 442 system, where the last survivors of an alien race waited for help that might never come. But help was coming, and it was bringing more destruction than the Devourers had ever imagined possible. In the void between stars, the massive human fleet raced toward their destination. Every ship carried weapons designed specifically to kill planet-eating monsters. Every crew member knew they might not come home, but they also knew they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. The Devourers had made a terrible mistake. They had threatened beings that humans had chosen to protect. Now, they would face the full fury of a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The journey would take weeks, but when the humans arrived, they would bring with them a level of violence and destruction that would shock the galaxy. The desperate call from the Veltar was about to be answered with devastating force. The human fleet moved through hyperspace like a storm of metal and fire. 200 ships traveled together, from massive dreadnoughts to small scout vessels. Admiral Marcus Bell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace flow past the windows. How long until we reach the first jump point? Bell asked his navigation officer. 18 hours, Admiral. We'll need to drop out of hyperspace to recalibrate our engines before the next jump. The journey to Kepler 442 would take several weeks and require multiple stops. Hyperspace travel was fast, but even human technology had limits. The distance they were covering would normally take months using regular space travel. Captain Alex Turner used the travel time to train his crew on the new quantum disruptor weapons. The Thunderstrike's gunnery teams practiced on holographic targets that moved like the Devourer entities from the Veltar recordings. Remember, Alex told his gunners, these things can change shape and move in ways that don't make sense. Don't aim where they are. Aim where they're going to be. His best gunner, Lieutenant Paul Davis, had been studying the alien footage for hours. Captain, these Devourers don't seem to follow normal physics. How do we predict movement that ignores gravity and momentum? By being better than they are, Alex replied. They might be able to break the laws of physics, but they can't break human determination. On the Warhammer, Captain Maria Santos was running combat drills with her Marines. The ship's cargo bays had been converted into training areas where soldiers practiced fighting in zero gravity against simulated crystal enemies. "These things are tough," Sergeant Rob Carter told his squad after a particularly difficult exercise. "But they're not indestructible. Hit them hard enough with the right weapons, and they die just like anything else." The Marines carried special quantum grenades designed to work against devourer crystal structures. Each grenade could theoretically destroy a house-sized piece of crystal, but they had never been tested in real combat. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kate Murphy worked with Veltar survivors to understand what happened to people exposed to devourer energy. The results were disturbing. "Their energy absorption doesn't just affect matter," explained Ketharan, a Veltar warrior who had fought the devourers for decades. "It affects living tissue differently. People who get too close don't just die. They fade away, like they never existed." Dr. Murphy studied the data with growing concern. "We need to keep our people at a safe distance from these things. Close combat should be avoided unless absolutely necessary." The first real test came 3 days into the journey. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace near a dead star system to recalibrate their engines, but long-range sensors detected something unexpected. "Admiral," called Commander Steve Walsh from his intelligence station, "I'm reading 3 objects moving toward us. They match the energy signatures of devourer entities." Bell felt his heart rate increase. "How far away?" 2 million kilometers, and closing. "They must have detected our hyperspace signature." The creatures approaching them were smaller than the planet killers shown in the Veltar footage, but they were still massive. Each one was about the size of a human destroyer, made of glowing crystal that pulsed with internal energy. "This is it," Beale announced to the fleet. "All ships, battle stations. We're about to test our weapons for real." Captain Turner brought the Thunderstrike around to face the approaching enemies. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, charging the quantum disruptor cannons and preparing for combat. "Target the lead creature," Alex ordered. "Let's see what these new weapons can do." The quantum disruptor fired with a sound like reality tearing apart. A beam of twisted space shot toward the devourer entity, hitting it dead center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the creature simply stopped existing. 1 second it was there, a massive crystal monster moving through space. The next second, there was nothing but empty space and a few sparks of fading energy. "Did we just..." Lieutenant Davis stared at his targeting screen in amazement. "Did we just completely destroy that thing?" "Holy hell," Alex whispered. "That was incredible." The second and third devourers tried to change direction, but the human ships were ready. The Warhammer and 2 escort destroyers opened fire simultaneously. The quantum disruptors tore through the crystal creatures like they were made of paper. In less than 30 seconds, all 3 devourers were gone. The human fleet floated in space, staring at the empty void where their enemies had been. "Weapons. Test successful," Admiral Bell announced with satisfaction. "But now they know we're coming." Commander Walsh was already analyzing the energy patterns from the destroyed creatures. "Admiral, just before they died, all 3 entities transmitted some kind of signal. It looked like a quantum communication burst. They warned the others." Bell realized. The element of surprise is gone. This news changed everything. Bell called a meeting of all ship captains to revise their strategy. The original plan had been to approach Veltar Prime quietly and catch the devourers off guard. Now they would be walking into a prepared enemy. "They know we're coming, but they don't know what we're capable of," Bell told his captains. "Those 3 scouts saw our weapons work, but they're dead. The information they sent back won't include details about how the quantum disruptors function." Captain Santos raised her hand. "What if they adapt to our weapons?" "The Veltar said these things can learn and evolve." "Then we'll adapt faster," Bell replied grimly, "and we'll hit them so hard they won't have time to learn." The journey continued, but now everyone was on high alert. The crew members practiced constantly, preparing for a battle that would be much harder than originally planned. The survivors worked with human engineers to fine-tune the weapons and develop new tactics. During the long days in hyperspace, the humans and aliens got to know each other better. The Veltar were amazed by human military culture, especially the willingness to risk everything for strangers. "Your species is very unusual," Sephora told Dr. Phillips during one of their conversations. "Most civilizations only fight to protect themselves or their direct allies. You are traveling across the galaxy to help people you have never met. That's what makes us human," Phillips replied. "We can't stand bullies. When we see someone picking on the weak, we have to step in." The Veltar also shared more details about their own civilization. They had been a peaceful species that focused on art, science, and philosophy. War was almost unknown to them before the Devourers arrived. "We built beautiful cities and studied the stars," Ketharan explained to General Kane. "When the first Devourer appeared, we thought it was just a natural disaster. We tried to evacuate and protect our people. We never considered that we might need to fight back aggressively. That's the difference between our species," Kane replied. "When something threatens what we care about, our first instinct is to destroy it completely." As they got closer to their destination, the fleet picked up more signals from the Kepler 442 system. The news was not good. Long-range sensors showed massive energy readings around Veltar Prime, indicating hundreds of Devourer entities. "It's worse than we thought," Commander Walsh reported. "The number of creatures around their planet has tripled since the original message was sent. They're accelerating the consumption process." Nina Torres worked frantically to improve the quantum disruptors based on what they had learned from the first battle. She discovered that the weapons worked better when multiple ships fired at the same target simultaneously. "The quantum resonance amplifies when the beams intersect," she explained to Admiral Bell. "If we coordinate our attacks, we can destroy even the largest Devourers." The final week of the journey was tense. Everyone knew they were approaching the biggest battle in human history. The enemy would be ready for them, and there would be no retreat. Either they would destroy the Devourers, or the Devourers would destroy them. Captain Turner spent hours studying the tactical data, planning attack runs against targets they had never seen. The Veltar had provided detailed information about Devourer hive structures and weak points, but much of it was theoretical. "We're going in blind," Alex told his bridge crew, "but we're going in armed with the most powerful weapons humanity has ever built." On the last day before reaching Kepler 442, Admiral Bell addressed the entire fleet. Every crew member, from admirals to maintenance workers, listened to his words. "In a few hours, we're going to drop out of hyperspace and face an enemy unlike anything humans have ever fought," Bell said. "These creatures have destroyed dozens of civilizations and consumed entire star systems. They think they're unstoppable." He paused, looking out at the fleet of ships surrounding his flagship. "They're about to learn that they picked the wrong species to mess with. We're humans, and we don't back down from bullies. We don't abandon our friends. And we sure as hell don't let monsters eat innocent people." The crew cheered, their voices echoing through every ship in the fleet. "When we reach that system, we're going to hit them with everything we have. We're going to show them what human weapons can do, and we're going to save every single Veltar survivor, because that's what humans do." As the fleet prepared to drop out of hyperspace, sensor readings showed the true scope of what they were about to face. Hundreds of Devourer entities swarmed around Veltar Prime, like insects around rotting fruit. The planet itself was partly consumed, its surface scarred and broken, but the human fleet was ready. 200 ships armed with quantum disruptors and crewed by the most determined warriors in the galaxy. The Devourers had been destroying civilizations for decades, but they had never faced anything like angry humans coming to help their friends. The battle for Veltar Prime was about to begin. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system and immediately saw the horror waiting for them. Hundreds of devourer entities surrounded Veltar Prime like a swarm of glowing insects. The planet itself was half consumed, its surface torn and bleeding energy into space. "My God," Admiral Marcus Bell whispered as he stared at the main screen. "There are so many of them." The devourers came in all sizes. Some were as small as fighters, darting around the planet's atmosphere. Others were massive as battleships, their crystal bodies pulsing with stolen energy. At the center of the swarm was something that made Bell's blood run cold, a creature the size of a small moon, slowly eating the planet's core. "All ships, battle stations," Bell ordered. "Begin attack formation, Alpha 7. Target the smaller entities first, and work our way up to the big one." Captain Alex Turner brought the Thunderstrike to the front of the formation. His quantum disruptor cannons were fully charged, and his crew was ready for war. Behind him, the Warhammer and dozens of other ships prepared to unleash humanity's fury. "Remember what they did to innocent people," Alex told his gunners over the ship's communication system. "These monsters destroyed entire worlds. Now it's time for payback." The first wave of quantum disruptors fired as one, creating beams of twisted reality that raced toward the devourer swarm. When the weapons hit their targets, the results were spectacular. Dozens of crystal creatures simply vanished, their molecular structure unraveling in bursts of impossible light. Direct hits on targets 1 through 15, Lieutenant Paul Davis reported with excitement. Complete destruction confirmed. But the devourers were not defenseless. The surviving creatures immediately began to move, their forms shifting and changing as they adapted to the human attack. Some grew thicker crystal armor, while others split into smaller, faster pieces. "They're learning," Commander Steve Walsh warned from his intelligence station. "The ones we haven't hit yet are changing to defend against our weapons." Admiral Bell watched the enemy adaptation with grim determination. "Then we'll hit them faster than they can learn. All ships, maximum rate of fire. Don't give them time to think." The battle turned into a massive exchange of destruction. Human quantum disruptors tore through space, while devourer entities fired back with energy beams that turned matter into raw power. Several human ships took hits, their armor melting under the alien assault. Captain Maria Santos led a daring attack, run directly into the heart of the enemy formation. The Warhammer and her escort ships punched through the devourer lines, their weapons carving a path of annihilation through the crystal swarm. "Target that big one," Maria ordered, pointing at a devourer the size of a space station. "Let's see how much punishment it can take." The combined fire from 5 human ships hit the massive creature simultaneously. The quantum resonance amplified as the beams intersected, creating a devastating effect that Chief Engineer Nina Torres had predicted. The giant devourer writhed in apparent pain before exploding in a shower of crystal fragments. "Yes," Maria shouted. "Coordinated fireworks. All ships, focus your attacks on single targets." But the devourers were learning quickly. They began to move in patterns that made coordinated attacks difficult, and their return fire became more accurate. The human destroyer Falcon took a direct hit that vaporized its entire front section. "We're losing ships," Bell realized. "We need to end this quickly." He made a command decision that would define the battle. "All Marine units, prepare for boarding actions. We're going to plant quantum charges inside their biggest ships." General Peter Kane had been waiting for this order. His Marines were loaded into assault shuttles, each one carrying enough explosives to destroy a city. The plan was dangerous, but it was the fastest way to eliminate the largest devourers. "Listen up," Kane told his troops over the radio. "These things can mess with physics, but they can't stop a determined Marine with a bomb. Get in, plant the charges, and get out. We'll blow them to pieces from the inside." Sergeant Tom Bradley led the first assault team toward a devourer that looked like a floating mountain of black crystal. His shuttle dodged energy beams and crystal shards as it approached the alien structure. There, Tom pointed to what looked like an opening in the creature's surface. "Take us in through that gap." The inside of the Devourer was like nothing the Marines had ever seen. Gravity pointed in random directions, and the walls pulsed with energy that made their equipment malfunction. But the Marines pressed forward, carrying their quantum charges deeper into the alien structure. "This place is insane," Private Lucy Clark muttered as she walked on what used to be the ceiling. "The laws of physics don't work in here." "Then we'll make our own laws," Tom replied, setting his first charge. "Plant the bombs, and let's get out of here." Meanwhile, the space battle continued to rage around them. The Thunderstrike engaged 3 medium-sized Devourers at once, its weapons firing so fast that the barrels began to glow with heat. "Weapons are overheating," Lieutenant Davis warned. "We need to slow down our rate of fire." "Negative," Alex replied. "These things adapt to fast. Keep firing until the guns melt if you have to." The quantum disruptors continued their deadly work, but Alex noticed something disturbing. The newer Devourers were taking more hits to destroy. They were evolving defenses against the human weapons, even as the battle continued. Chief Engineer Torres watched the weapon effectiveness data from her station on the flagship. "Admiral, the Devourers are developing resistance to our quantum frequencies. Each wave of creatures is harder to kill than the last." "How long before our weapons become useless?" Bell asked. "At this rate of adaptation, maybe an hour." Bell felt a chill. If the Devourers adapted completely to human weapons, the battle would be lost. He needed a way to boost the quantum disruptors beyond their normal capacity. Then he remembered something Nina had discovered during testing. Human emotions somehow amplified the quantum resonance. The angrier the gunners got, the more effective the weapons became. "All ships," Bell announced over the fleet communication network. "I want you to look at what these monsters did to Veltar Prime. Look at the destroyed cities and the dead worlds. These creatures killed billions of innocent people. They're trying to kill the rest right now." On every ship, crew members watched footage of Devourer attacks on Veltar colonies. They saw crystal monsters tearing apart hospitals and schools, consuming everything in their path without mercy. "Now I want you to get angry," Bell continued. "I want you to think about what would happen if these things reached Earth, or Mars, or any human world. I want you to imagine your families being consumed by these abominations." The effect was immediate. As the human crews became genuinely enraged, their quantum disruptors began to fire with increased power. The weapons that had been losing effectiveness suddenly became devastating again. "What's happening?" Torres asked, staring at her readouts in amazement. "Power output just increased by 30% across the entire fleet." "Human rage," Bell replied with a grim smile. "Our secret weapon?" The tide of battle began to turn. Devourer after Devourer fell to the enhanced human weapons. The creatures tried to adapt, but the emotional amplification of the quantum fields made their defenses useless. Sergeant Bradley's Marine team successfully planted their charges and fought their way back to their shuttle. As they escaped, the quantum explosives detonated inside the mountain-sized Devourer. The creature collapsed in on itself, its crystal structure unable to contain the destructive resonance. "Direct hit," Bradley reported. "Target destroyed from the inside." Similar successes came from Marine teams throughout the battle zone. The combination of external bombardment and internal explosions proved too much for even the largest DEVOURS. But the biggest challenge still remained: the moon-sized creature. At the center of the swarm continued to consume Veltar Prime, seemingly ignoring the battle raging around it. This was clearly the leader of the Devourer swarm, and it would take everything the humans had to destroy it. "All ships, concentrate fire on the primary target," Bell ordered. "Every quantum disruptor in the fleet, maximum power, coordinated strike." 200 human ships aligned their weapons toward the massive devourer. The creature finally seemed to notice the threat, turning its attention away from the planet for the first time since the battle began. "Fire," Bell commanded. The combined quantum disruptor barrage lit up space like a newborn star. The beams converged on the giant devourer, their resonance amplified by the rage and determination of every human crew member. The creature's crystal surface began to crack and flake away under the assault, but it fought back. Energy beams thicker than battleships lashed out from the dying monster, striking human ships with devastating force. The destroyer Phoenix exploded completely, taking its entire crew with it. "Keep firing," Bell ordered, even as his own ship shook under enemy fire. "Don't let up. We've got it on the run." The giant devourer began to collapse. Pieces of crystal, the size of mountains, broke away and dissolved into energy. But even as it died, the creature made one last desperate attack. A beam of pure destructive force shot toward the thunderstrike. Alex saw it coming and tried to dodge, but the beam was too fast and too wide. "Brace for impact," he shouted. The energy beam hit the thunderstrike's side, tearing through armor and hull like paper. Emergency alarms screamed as atmosphere vented into space. But the ship held together, its crew working frantically to seal the breaches. "Damage report," Alex called out, blood running down his face from a head wound. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, Lieutenant Davis reported. "But we're still operational. And sir, the big devourer is down." Alex looked at the main screen and saw that the giant creature was indeed dead, its remains drifting in space as scattered crystal fragments. Around them, the surviving smaller devourers were fleeing the system as fast as they could move. "Let them run," Admiral Bell announced. "Chase down any stragglers, but don't pursue the main group. We've won this battle." The battle for Veltar Prime was over. The human fleet had faced hundreds of planet-eating monsters and emerged victorious. But the cost had been high. 7 ships were completely destroyed, and dozens more were damaged. Most importantly, they had saved the Veltar survivors, the 3 million aliens still alive on their wounded planet had watched in amazement as the humans had driven off their destroyers. As the immediate threat ended, rescue ships moved toward Veltar Prime to begin evacuating the survivors. The planet was too damaged to remain habitable, but its people were alive. Admiral Bell looked at the tactical display, showing the scattered remains of the Devourer's swarm. This had been just one group of the creatures, somewhere in the galaxy. There were more swarms consuming other worlds, but now humanity knew they could be beaten. The weapons worked, and human determination made them work even better. The real war was just beginning. The rescue ships moved carefully through the debris field that had once been Devourer Swarm. Crystal fragments drifted in space like glittering snow, all that remained of the monsters that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. Admiral Marcus Bell watched from his flagship as human crews worked to evacuate the last Veltar survivors from their dying planet. 3 million people, Bell said to his aide. That's all that's left of their entire civilization. The evacuation was going smoothly. Human transport ships landed on the stable parts of Veltar Prime, loading refugees who had been hiding in underground shelters for months. The aliens looked weak and scared, but their large eyes shone with hope when they saw their human rescuers, Captain Jake Morrison, promoted to Commodore after his discovery of the original message, supervised the rescue operations. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, had been converted into a mobile hospital to treat injured Veltar survivors. "How are they doing?" Morrison asked Dr. Kate Murphy as she examined a group of young Veltar, malnourished and traumatized, but alive. Murphy replied, "They've been eating emergency rations for months while hiding from the Devourers, but they'll recover with proper care." The grateful Veltar did more than just accept human help. They immediately began sharing their advanced technology and knowledge with their rescuers. Zephyra, the Veltar scientist, worked with Chief Engineer Nina Torres to improve human weapons and defenses. Your quantum disruptors are impressive, Zafira told Torres, but we can make them even better. Our people have been studying energy manipulation for centuries. The technological exchange was remarkable. Veltar engineering combined with human military innovation created weapons systems more powerful than either species could have built alone. The new designs could destroy entire devourer swarms with just a few shots. But perhaps more importantly, the Veltar provided something else. Information about other threatened civilizations throughout the galaxy. The devourers are not just in this system, Catharan explained to Admiral Bell. Our deep space monitors detected at least 12 other swarms before our equipment was destroyed. Millions of beings are still fighting for their lives across the galaxy. Bell studied the star charts showing devourer movements. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The crystal monsters were systematically consuming every inhabited world they could find, growing stronger with each victory. We can't save everyone, Bell said grimly, but we can try to save as many as possible. Word of humanity's devastating victory began to spread throughout the galaxy. The news traveled through quantum communication networks, passed along by traders, explorers, and refugees. For the first time in decades, intelligent species had hope. The Corax, a warrior race that had been fighting a losing battle against the devourers for years, sent a desperate message to Earth. Their military commander, General Vekvar, requested human assistance in defending their last stronghold. We heard what you did at Veltar Prime, the alien general said in his transmission. Our warriors are brave, but our weapons cannot match yours. Will you help us fight these crystal demons? Similar requests came from dozens of other species. The peaceful Mindari offered to share their advanced medical technology in exchange for protection. The Zephyrian merchants promised rare resources and trade agreements. Even the proud Stellar Empire, which had never asked for help from anyone, quietly sent diplomatic messages to Earth. Admiral Helen Carter, now Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Force, found herself at the center of the galaxy's attention. Representatives from alien civilizations arrived at Earth daily, all seeking alliances with the species that had proven they could defeat the Devourers. We're becoming the galaxy's protectors, whether we want to or not, Carter told the Earth Council during an emergency session. Every species out there is looking to us for salvation. The Council debated for hours about humanity's role in galactic affairs. Some members worried about the cost and risk of fighting wars across the galaxy. Others argued that ignoring the threat would eventually doom Earth anyway. Young strategist Amy Stone, now promoted to colonel, presented the argument that convinced them. The Devourers get stronger every time they consume a civilization, she explained. If we let them eat everyone else, they'll eventually come for us with the power of 100 consumed species behind them. The decision was unanimous. Earth would lead a galactic alliance against the Devourer threat. Admiral Bell was given command of the new Galactic Liberation Force, a combined fleet of human ships and vessels from allied species. The first major operation targeted a Devourer swarm attacking the Corax homeworld. The battle was even more devastating than the fight at Veltar Prime. Human quantum disruptors, enhanced with Veltar technology and supported by Corax warrior ships, tore through the crystal monsters like a storm of destruction. The Devourers that had been slowly consuming the Corax planet for months were destroyed in less than an hour. Incredible, General Dekvar said as he toured the Thunderstrike after the battle. Your weapons turn our enemies into nothing. How is such power possible? Captain Alex Turner, his ship now equipped with even more powerful weapons, smiled grimly. We don't just fight with technology, General. We fight with anger. When we see bullies hurting innocent people, we get mad. And when humans get mad, we become very dangerous. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Wherever Devourer swarms appeared, human-led fleets arrived to destroy them. Each victory brought new allies and more advanced technology to the growing alliance. Dr. Ryan Phillips made a breakthrough discovery while studying captured devourer fragments. The crystal creatures were not natural life forms at all, but artificial weapons created by an extinct civilization millions of years ago. They're like a computer virus made of matter, Phillips explained to the scientific council. Someone built them to consume and destroy, but they lost control of their creation. The devourers have been wandering the galaxy ever since, following their programming to eat everything they encounter. This discovery led to the development of even more effective weapons. If the devourers were artificial, they could be completely shut down by targeting their control systems. Nina Torres and her team created kill codes that could deactivate entire swarms instantly. The war began to turn decisively in favor of the Alliance. Devourer swarms that had terrorized the galaxy for decades were being hunted down and destroyed by human-led fleets. Species that had lived in fear for generations started to rebuild their civilizations. But not everyone was happy with humanity's new role. Some alien civilizations resented being saved by a relatively young species. Others worried that humans would become the new threat to galactic peace. These concerns were addressed when Admiral Carter announced the formation of the Galactic Council, a democratic body where all species would have equal representation. Humans would provide military leadership, but political decisions would be made collectively. "We're not here to rule the galaxy," Carter declared at the first council meeting. "We're here to protect it. When the devourer threat is eliminated, we'll go back to exploring and trading like we always have." The final major battle came when long-range scouts discovered the devourer home base, a massive structure hidden in a dead star system at the galaxy's edge. The base was the size of a small planet and contained millions of dormant devourers waiting to be activated. Admiral Bell assembled the largest fleet in galactic history for the assault. Over 1,000 ships from dozens of species converged on the target, but everyone knew the humans would lead the attack. "This is it," Bell announced to the combined fleet. "We destroy this base, and the devourer threat ends forever. Every world they've consumed, every civilization they've destroyed, every innocent life they've taken, we're going to make them pay for all of it." The battle was epic beyond description. The devourer base defended itself with weapons that could destroy moons, but the Alliance fleet was ready. Human quantum disruptors, enhanced with the best technology from a dozen species, carved through the base's defenses like swords through paper. When the base finally exploded, the shockwave could be seen from 100 light-years away. With it died the last remnants of the artificial plague that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. The victory celebration lasted for weeks. On every liberated world, beings of all species gathered to thank the humans who had saved them. Monuments were built, songs were written, and children were named after the human heroes who had brought peace to the stars. But perhaps the greatest tribute came from the Veltar, whose desperate call had started it all. They established a new colony world that they named Hope's Dawn and invited humans to settle there alongside them. "You came when we called," Zafira said at the colony's dedication ceremony. "You risked everything to save strangers you had never met. That is what makes your species special. You don't just survive, you help others survive too." Admiral Bell, now old and gray, but still commanding respect throughout the galaxy, gave the final speech at the ceremony. "When we first heard your call for help, we had a choice. We could have ignored it and hoped the threat would pass us by. Instead, we chose to fight." He looked out at the crowd of humans and aliens gathered before him. "That choice changed everything. It brought us new friends, new knowledge, and a new understanding of our place in the universe. We learned that the galaxy is full of good people worth protecting, and that humans are very good at protecting them." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for all those lost to the devourers over the millennia. Then the celebration resumed, as beings from across the galaxy shared food, stories, and hope for the future. In the years that followed, the Galactic Council grew into a true democracy. Trade flourished, exploration expanded, and new civilizations were welcomed with open arms instead of fear. The military remained strong under human leadership, but it was rarely needed. Sometimes, young humans would ask Admiral Bell why their species had become so important in galactic affairs. His answer was always the same. Because when someone calls for help, we answer, and when bullies threaten innocent people, we fight back. That's what humans do, and that's what makes us special. The desperate call from Veltar Prime had indeed reached Earth, and humanity had responded with such devastating force that they had not only saved one species, but liberated an entire galaxy. The stars were safe, and they would remain safe as long as humans stood watch.